You need to pay close attention. What's happening? The price of Bitcoin is falling. Crashing, correcting, call it whatever you want. But the weak hands are selling, they're panicking, and the money is going straight to the big fish. Take a close look at what's happening. Blackrock is buying the dip. Blackrock is buying over 6,000 Bitcoin right now. And all the people who are panicking and selling here are getting out of the market. I said yesterday that this whole thing is a fake dump and a redistribution. From weak hands to strong hands. You don't want to be one of the weak hands here, because this is what's happening now. Additionally, there are accusations of manipulation from Robert Kiyosaki and Tom Lee, who have been talking about this all the time. That Wall Street, the big players here, are desperately trying to keep the Bitcoin price below $100,000, so the whales can fill their pockets. The Bitcoin price below 100,000. To keep the Bitcoin price below $100,000, so the whales can fill their pockets. Vivek shared this again here. Robert Kiyosaki says that Blackrock is suppressing the Bitcoin price, so suppresses the Bitcoin price so that the whales here are still below 100,000. You could buy Bitcoin for US dollars. Do you even realize what's happening here? You have to put that into perspective a bit. So it's always a matter of definition when it comes to the whole manipulation story. I mean, a lot of people just keep throwing that around. Yeah, the Bitcoin price is being manipulated. Why not over $100,000? There are also people like Adam Back who talk about it. Bitcoins have information asymmetry. That means the Bitcoin price should actually be much higher. But people just don't get it, and all the bullish news isn't reflected in the Bitcoin price because there's a discrepancy between the insider information that some people might have, those on X who might be front-running Donald Trump's strategic Bitcoin reserve, if that happens, and the regular folks who just don't understand. Those on X who might be front-running Donald Trump's strategic Bitcoin reserve. If that happens, and the regular folks who just don't get it, who are just going through their normal lives, which isn't a bad thing, and aren't paying attention to what's happening right now, who are just going through their everyday lives, which isn't a bad thing, and they're not paying attention to what's happening right now. Sure, big players like Wall Street folks, BlackRock, and so on, are trying to keep the Bitcoin prices low at all costs. Here, keeping the Bitcoin prices low. To buy in at a good price. They're not just doing this with Bitcoin. They're doing it with other assets too. And you can clearly see here that BlackRock stayed pretty cool during this dip. And they kept buying in here. But to be fair, you have to say, it's not BlackRock itself, but it's the clients of BlackRock who have been buying in here. Tom Lee said a while back, it's not just Wall Street, it's also the exchanges that want to keep the price down, so that there isn't a squeeze here, because there are just so few Bitcoins on the exchanges. I find the theory a bit far-fetched, to be honest. I also find Robert Kiyosaki's theory somewhat questionable. I mean, sure, they're trying to push the Bitcoin price down. But the question is this really manipulation? Because in the end, it's just that Bitcoin is a very, very free market. That means you can just sell 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion in Bitcoin at night, who knows? You can do that 24/7. You can also see the liquidation levels. And if you just see them and outsmart them and have a lot of capital here, like, for example, big players like BlackRock or whatever, then maybe you can manipulate the Bitcoin price a bit. But you can only do that for a short time. You can't keep doing that forever. At some point, the bill just comes due, and then the Bitcoin price shoots up. I always explain it with a volleyball that can be held underwater for a certain amount of time, can be pushed down, can be suppressed. And if you just hold it underwater long enough, eventually you won't have enough strength anymore. And then bam, the thing shoots up. And then there's a breakout here. But it's really completely irrelevant, whether you believe Robert Kiyosaki and Tom Lee, or to the people who say that the Bitcoin price is being manipulated. Or if you see it more like this, that it's just the free market forces here. Michael Saylor also says, hey, the Bitcoin price, it's not being manipulated. These are just the free markets. This one is pretty common. But yeah, there are definitely some sneaky tricks, like when people look at the order books and then bet against their own customers' order books. And so there are still some really sneaky tricks. I've talked about that in other videos too. Anyway, what's important for you to take away from this is, you can also see all of this as an opportunity. When there are pullbacks here, if there are corrections here, you can just buy more. I mean, we're currently dealing with some uncertainty coming from the Fed in the market. You don't know here how many interest rate cuts are coming. This could lead to, let's say, volatility in the market also affects the Bitcoin reserve. History. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. You've seen it too. Before the Bitcoin ETFs, there was still volatility. Now we have a similar event with the Bitcoin reserve street. And we've also seen that the Bitcoin price shot up massively, where the Bitcoin ETFs went through. Something similar could happen here too. It could also be that the economic data isn't being interpreted positively by the market. And that's why these sell-offs are happening here. So we always have a mix of different reasons there. And on top of that, of course, also, some big players are trying things out. Sure, to keep the Bitcoin price low, with leverage tactics, with liquidity tactics, and so on. But the smart players are taking advantage of these pullbacks, and among those smart players is, here it seems like Blackrock is clearly buying up this dip. And then we have a massive shock announcement, and that's Bhutan. Are they really going all in on Bitcoin now? We already knew that they have massive Bitcoin holdings. Now they're also setting up a strategic Bitcoin reserve here. I have to honestly say here misinformation is also being spread. It's not Bhutan that has set up a strategic Bitcoin reserve here, but rather, the new city in Bhutan is called something like GMC or something, and it's also being referred to as a mindfulness city. Others are calling the city something like gel food. I have no idea if it's called GLC or gel food or whatever. It definitely looks like you can experience nirvana through a Bitcoin cold wallet, and Bitcoin. Definitely recommend using 21 Bitcoin, the easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. Here at the Food Bitcoin Hotel, you can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Even the Buddhists and the mindfulness masters and the meditation masters are here. British on Bitcoin. And it totally makes sense that Bhutan is diving into Bitcoin like this. I mean, they have huge energy resources that they use for Bitcoin mining. So far, they've also been, let's say, doing Bitcoin mining, and they have the highest Bitcoin holdings per capita. How do you say? Per capita, per gross domestic product. So in relation to the gross domestic product, I think it's about a third or something like that of the GDP they have in Bitcoin holdings. That's crazy if you think about it. Something similar would be done by the USA or something like that. We're definitely seeing it now. A city in Bhutan that's also adopting a Bitcoin reserve strategy. Very important. But of course, that's all a matter of definition. So that means the city is now being labeled like this. Yeah, right, it has a Bitcoin reserve strategy. Bhutan's held Bitcoin long. So where does the reserve strategy actually start? Do you just have to hold Bitcoin there? Like, for example, El Salvador or here Bhutan? Or do you have to do something special, like regularly buying Bitcoin or something like that? It's all a matter of definition, but for sure, it's being heavily promoted here. Bhutan's new mindfulness CD now has a Bitcoin reserve. And that's very, very positive, because that also shows that the global race is continuing to heat up. More and more players are getting into Bitcoin, and more people are realizing that they need Bitcoin. More and more people are realizing, hey, the Bitcoin price is getting away from me if I don't jump in now. And here, British Hotel actually said something super urgent. That's really true. The urgency shows the situation we're currently in. Check this. Please.
If you're saying, I'm a skeptic, it's not going to work, BlackRock involved, right? In something that's not going to work, you think BlackRock is involved in something they can't push hard enough. Cash, so.
I'm talking to all the skeptics out there who are feeling uncertain right now. Does the Bitcoin price go up or does it keep falling? It's really about the strategic Bitcoin reserve and so on, where they're really overthinking things and putting a lot of thought into it. And it just says, do you really think that BlackRock would invest in an asset they're not 100% convinced will work? In an asset they're not 100% convinced about? That this asset actually works? That there's regulatory clarity? That it won't be banned? That it will continue to gain momentum? And where you also know that there are massive inflows coming into this asset? Do you really think that BlackRock is so naive to just take a gamble here? Buying any kind of Bitcoin, buying any kind of magic internet money. No, they're not that stupid, of course. They're just protecting themselves. They only buy what they're completely convinced about. That this bet pays off.
And that's an ultimate signal to all the bears who are still in the game. How much of a damn mess you are, it encourages you to realize doubts. You can't outrun it. Something I accepted. I had to realize in 2020 that there was no value in being pushed. They are. The businesses I had, two businesses I had. Because Bitcoin outperformed all of them. I was never able to expand Bitcoin, and that's an understanding. That has to happen.
So either you're going to realize it now, or you're going to realize it at 500K, or you're going to realize it at 1 million, or you're going to realize it at some point. Ignoring what BlackRock is doing, it's easy to say, yeah, Bitcoin won't make it. BlackRock, the biggest players in the world, and so on, they buy that, but it won't make it. And then he says it's also ignorant to think that there are other assets here that manage to outperform Bitcoin. He's talking about his own experience. He had other businesses and then just gave them up. Pumped everything into Bitcoin because he realized, yeah, he might have a good business. It might make 20% a year, but he just can't make 50% or 100% a year. He can't outperform Bitcoin. And that's a problem. Or should I say a luxury problem that a lot of people have these days. That the Bitcoin price is rising faster. If your businesses can even make a profit, and then you let yourself get scared by a 5, 10, or 20% pullback. And that's basically what he wants to make clear here. Hey guys, check it out, there's an absolute opportunity here. BlackRock is in the game, the big players are in the game. Bitcoin advances, some doubt. Huge leaps forward, regulatory clarity is now there, a lot of things are now there, but there are still people who are ignorant, who think, no, it's still kind of a scam, it's still a joke. It's still magic internet money that never works and that nobody wants to use. And that's ultimately the important takeaway here, and then also to think about what allocation you should take. And that's ultimately the important thing to take away from this, and then also to think about here what allocation you should take. Because British Hotel just sold everything. It looks like they went all in on Bitcoin. I don't want to say go all in on Bitcoin or something like that. You have to know for yourselves. You must sleep peacefully, that's the important part. If you don't have the education, if you don't have the know-how, there's no point. Having larger allocations in Bitcoin should also match your level of knowledge. Because otherwise, you'll be one of those paper hands selling in the trash. And then you just say, hey, he'd rather put his money into Bitcoin because the performance is just better. It's like if I hustle and work all day long, and my business still can't keep up. To outperform the Bitcoin price, I always post pictures like this where I'm just lying around at the beach. Then I always write, hey, here I am lying around at the beach. And I managed to outperform 99% of hedge fund managers just by chilling and lounging around. And that's just brutal.
It's a simple IQ test at this point. It's a sharp asset, the only sharp asset humanity has ever seen. Real sharpness that is followed by unlimited money. If you don't understand this, then you are fatter than any of us can help. And that's okay. There's a reputation for you in the world.
This is not my world. Help is fixed. Let me tell you, Bitcoin is an intelligence test, and it's not just an intelligence test. It's really a matter of awareness. It separates the fools from the smart, the poor from the rich classes. Now, I'm exaggerating a bit, but when I say poor and rich, I mean intellectual wealth too. And it's not just about having some accumulated knowledge. It's really about understanding. It's really about that. Realizing that Bitcoin is here. The hope is that Bitcoin is, let's say, the sun here, and not Bitcoin being the scam that's here to enslave us. Some people, for example, say Bitcoin is the Trojan horse, or whatever, Bitcoin is the only scarce asset. Everything else is expanding. What's happening with the Bitcoin price? Take a close look. Will the Bitcoin price go up? Will the Bitcoin price drop? What if we have an unlimited supply, but Bitcoin is limited? You just have to add one and one together. And anyone who comes to that conclusion, the Bitcoin price has to drop. He might be trapped in his own fiat bubble, in his MMT Maurice Hofte Marcel Frach bubble, who still thinks, hey, we can print unlimited money and create wealth. That's kind of thinking from 10 years ago. We really need to start realizing that this isn't working. And now I actually have a recommendation for you. And there's now a Bitcoin hotel in Germany. In Stuttgart, Blochingen, near Stuttgart, is there now again. Bitcoin workshops, how to easily use Bitcoin. Securing on your own hardware wallet, how to handle Bitcoin, sending and receiving Bitcoin. Here you can also see the brevity. The next one is on January 31st, 1.02 instead. So really, really close. Then again in March and again in April, there are now short sessions available here. For people who are new to Bitcoin and really want to have it explained to them in person. These are really great beginner workshops that I absolutely recommend, where there has always been very, very good feedback. You can either scan the QR code directly here, scan it to get all the info about the course. Or I'll also put a link down below for you, where you can find all the info about the course and where you can participate. So I absolutely recommend it. See you later. Peace out.